Rain fell hard on the metal roof of the outpost, making loud tapping sounds. Inside, everything was quiet, cold, and full of tension. The guards stood in a line, waiting. Their boots were wet, their faces serious. Something important was coming. The heavy doors slid open with a hiss. 2 armored soldiers walked in, pulling chains. At the end of those chains was a girl, an alien girl. She had silver hair, messy and tangled. Her clothes were torn. Her skin had bruises and cuts. But her eyes were full of fire. She looked around, breathing hard. Her arms were bound behind her back and a metal collar was locked around her neck. But she didn't look weak. She didn't beg. She growled, "I'll never be your animal," she shouted in a voice that echoed through the room. "Do you hear me, human? I'd rather die." One of the guards smirked. "You talk too much for a prisoner." She turned sharply toward him, eyes full of rage. "You wouldn't dare take off this collar and fight me. Coward." The soldiers didn't answer. They pulled her forward and brought her to a man standing near a console. He wasn't wearing armor, just a simple brown coat. His face was calm but serious. His name was Commander Elias Dane. He looked at the girl quietly. Not with hate, not with pity, just observing. "This the one?" he asked the soldier. "Yes, sir. Species unknown. Violent. She bit 2 of our men and destroyed a holding cell with her bare hands." Elias nodded. Then he looked into the girl's eyes. She stared back, breathing heavy, waiting for him to hit her. "That's what humans did, right? They chained, beat, and broke aliens." That's what they always did, but Elias didn't move. He just said calmly, "Take her to holding bay 9, I want her isolated. No one talks to her. No one touches her." The guards blinked. "But sir, she's dangerous." "So am I," Elias said without emotion. They took her away. Holding bay 9 wasn't like a normal prison cell. It had a clean bed, a warm light, and food in the corner. No sharp tools, no cameras, just silence. The alien girl sat on the floor, her back against the wall. Her stomach growled. She hadn't eaten in 2 days. But she didn't touch the food. What if it was poisoned? What if it made her weak? She didn't sleep. She just stared at the door, waiting. Hours passed. Then it opened. Commander Elias stepped inside, holding a chair. He set it down and sat across from her. No guards, no weapons. Just him. She narrowed her eyes. "Here to beat me yourself?" He shook his head. "No." "Then why are you here?" She spat. "I want to understand you." She laughed bitterly. "Understand? You chain me like a dog and then ask questions like a friend?" "I didn't put those chains on you," Elias said. "But I saw your file. No one knows your species. No one knows where you're from. You attacked a convoy near Titan 4. Why?" She didn't answer. "I can keep you in this room forever," he said. "Or I can let you speak." She looked at him for a long time. "You humans. You take and take. My people were peaceful. You called it weakness. You burned our homes. You hunted us. I have nothing left. Nothing to lose." Elias didn't blink. "And yet you're still fighting." She leaned forward. "Because I'm not an animal. I'm not your pet. And I will never ever kneel to your kind." Something in her voice cracked, not fear but pain. Deep pain, hidden behind anger. Elias stood up. "No one's asking you to kneel." He turned to leave. Her voice stopped him. "What are you planning to do with me?" she asked quietly. "I haven't decided yet," he replied. Then the door shut behind him. That night, she finally ate the food. It wasn't poisoned. It was warm, real. Her hands shook as she brought the bowl to her lips. She hated that it tasted good. She hated that part of her didn't want to be alone anymore. She curled up on the bed but didn't sleep. The collar around her neck buzzed softly, reminding her she was still a prisoner. But deep in her heart, something strange stirred. That human hadn't hit her. Hadn't screamed at her. Hadn't looked at her like a monster. Why? She gripped the edge of the blanket tightly. "I'll never be your animal," she whispered again, softer this time. But her voice was starting to sound unsure. The morning light flickered through the small window above her bed. It wasn't real sunlight. It was artificial, filtered through the upper dome of the human station. But to the alien girl, it still looked peaceful. She sat on the bed, legs crossed, eyes fixed on the door. She hadn't moved all night. Sleep had teased her but never stayed. The collar around her neck buzzed lightly every few hours, reminding her that she was still under control, but no one came. No one yelled. No one beat her, and that silence was worse than pain. Her name wasn't even in their files. She'd never told anyone her name. Names were sacred to her people. She wasn't about to give that to a human. Yet deep inside something felt strange. Why was her cell so soft? Why was the food warm? Why was that human, Commander Elias, so calm? She stood slowly and walked toward the small shelf near the wall. A folded set of clothes had been left there. Clean, comfortable. Clearly not for prisoners. She sniffed them with suspicion. No chemicals. No strange smells, just cloth. She hesitated, then changed into them. The fabric hugged her skin. It felt like something she hadn't worn in years. Kindness. That made her angry again. Was this a new trick? Were the humans trying to break her with softness? She marched to the door and slammed her fists against it. "Come back and fight me like a warrior," she shouted, her voice echoing off the walls. "Stop playing games." But no answer came, just the soft hum of the air system. She fell back against the door, breathing hard. For the first time in a long while, she didn't know what to do. Her strength had always come from resistance, from rage, but what could she fight? If no one was fighting her? The door hissed open suddenly. She spun around, hands raised to attack, but it was just him. Commander Elias stepped in holding a small tray with food. Again, a bowl of stew, a piece of soft bread, a cup of clean water. He placed it on the table and turned to leave. "You treat me like a guest," she snapped, "but I know I'm your prisoner." "You're not my guest," Elias said without turning, "and I don't want you to be my enemy either." She narrowed her eyes. "You act so gentle, but I've seen what your kind does. You'll show your true face soon." Elias paused in the doorway. "Maybe you will too." Then the door closed. She didn't touch the food for hours. She sat by the window instead, staring up at the glass dome above. Somewhere out there, stars still burned. Her home planet was among them, but she didn't know where anymore. The war had changed everything. Her family was gone. Her people scattered, and she had chosen to fight, but this place, it felt wrong. It didn't smell like cruelty. It didn't sound like a prison. It looked like a cage with a view. That night, something even stranger happened. The collar stopped buzzing. She touched it carefully. No shock. No sound. Nothing. She stood and looked at the door. Still locked, but her body felt lighter. No pain. No control signal pressing into her brain. Just her alone in a warm room with real food and a working bed. She stared at the collar. Was this freedom? No, it couldn't be. It had to be a test. Her people had told her. Humans love to pretend. They act soft before they strike. So she curled up in bed again, her back to the door, her fist clenched. But part of her wanted to believe this was real. The next morning, she woke to a sound she hadn't heard in weeks. Music. A soft melody played from a speaker in the ceiling. It wasn't alien. It was human. Simple, gentle notes like water flowing over stones. It made her sit up, confused. Why would they play music for a prisoner? Then the door opened again. This time Elias didn't speak. He just placed a small device on the table. "What is that?" she asked, watching him carefully. "A translator," he said. "It'll let us talk better. I've only caught a few of your words. You speak 3 languages in one sentence." She stared at the device, then back at him. "You think we're going to talk now?" Elias nodded. "Eventually. And what makes you so sure?" He looked her in the eye. "Because you're still here." Then he walked out. She stood frozen. He was right. She could have tried to escape. Smashed something. Screamed for hours. But she didn't. She stayed. Because for the first time since her capture, her mind was asking a different question. Not how do I fight? But why is he being kind? She stared at the translator. She could destroy it. But she didn't. Instead, she whispered the first words in her own tongue that weren't angry or scared, and the device lit up, translating them softly. "I don't understand you." But deep inside, she wanted to. The room was quiet again, but her mind was not. She sat at the table, staring at the small translator device. It blinked softly as if waiting for her voice. It hadn't spoken again since yesterday. Neither had she. The alien girl, still nameless to the humans, looked down at her hands. Rough skin, dirty nails, small scars across her knuckles. Proof of everything she had fought, broken, and survived. But now, she had nothing to break, no chains to rip, no guards to strike, no pain to scream against, only silence and that human Elias, Why was he doing this? What did he want from her? She stood up and began pacing the room like a restless animal. No, not an animal. A fighter. A survivor. She couldn't forget what she was, but her legs stopped moving when she saw something left near the door. A folded cloth, and next to it a small case with healing cream, bandages, and water. She blinked. This wasn't just kindness. This was trust. Her collar didn't buzz anymore. Her door had no cameras. She had medical supplies. No one left those for an enemy. Her fingers trembled as she picked up the bandage. The kindness hurt more than violence. Later, the door opened again. But this time, something was different. Commander Elias wasn't wearing his coat. He looked tired, a little pale, but not weak, and on his back. She gasped. He had turned to adjust something on the table, and for a brief second, the edge of his shirt lifted up. Long, jagged scars crossed his back. Faded now, but deep. Old wounds healed by time, but not forgotten by the skin. She froze, staring. He turned and saw her eyes. For the first time, she looked at him not like a human, but like someone who had also suffered. "You were a prisoner," she said softly. The translator lit up and repeated her words in clear English. Elias paused. He didn't deny it. "Yes," he said simply. "A long time ago." She tilted her head. "Who did this to you?" He sat down. "People. Not all humans are the same." She walked slowly toward the table, watching his face carefully. "Then why do you treat me differently?" she asked. "Because I've seen what happens when you treat someone like an animal," he said, voice calm. "They become one." She didn't respond. Just sat down across from him. For the first time, her eyes weren't filled with fire, but questions. "Where are your people now?" Elias asked. She looked away. "Gone, scattered, maybe dead. And your name?" She didn't answer right away. Names were sacred. But slowly, she touched the translator and whispered a word in her native tongue. "Zarena." The device blinked. "Zarena," he nodded. "Thank you." That simple act, saying her name, made her chest feel strange. Not pain, not anger, just unfamiliar warmth. They sat for a while, not speaking, just breathing the same air. Then suddenly the alarm rang. Red lights flashed. Elias stood quickly and touched his earpiece. "Report." Zarena stood too, tense again. "Commander, outer gate breached." One of the supply ships exploded. "Possible sabotage," a voice crackled through the speaker. Elias cursed under his breath. "Lock down the east corridor." "I'm coming." He turned to leave, but Zarena stepped forward. "You're under attack?" He nodded. "I can help," she said without thinking. Elias stopped, looked back at her, surprised. "You're a prisoner," he said. Zarena raised her chin. "I'm not your enemy." Their eyes met. The room felt heavy with meaning. Then, slowly, Elias tapped his wrist console. The door behind her opened wider. He didn't say yes, but he didn't say no. Outside the room, chaos echoed through the halls. Screams, running boots, smoke alarms. Zarena followed Elias through the corridors. No collar, no guards. Just her and him side by side. When a guard saw her, he raised his weapon. "She's with me," Elias said firmly. The guard hesitated, then lowered the rifle. Zarena couldn't believe it. Just days ago they had dragged her here in chains. Now, they let her walk freely. She looked at Elias again, and she noticed something else. He walked with a slight limp, another old injury. More proof that the scars on his body weren't just from war, but survival, like hers. They reached the outer platform. A transport ship burned in the distance. Fuel leaked across the floor. Sparks flew from damaged panels. Elias gave quick orders, his voice calm but sharp. He knew what he was doing, but then a scream. A young technician was trapped under debris near the edge. "No one move," a soldier shouted. "The floor's unstable." Zarena didn't wait. She ran. Elias yelled, "Zarena, stop!" But she was already sliding across the metal, dodging flames, lifting the panel with her alien strength. The young man gasped. She pulled him free. As she dragged him back, the metal behind her cracked and fell into the fire below. She made it just in time. The technician stared at her with wide eyes. "You'd saved me." Zarena didn't answer. Her heart pounded. Then she looked up at Elias. He wasn't shouting. He was smiling, just a little, but enough. That night, she returned to her room. The collar was still gone. The translator blinked softly. She whispered one word to it. "Why?" The device answered in Elias's voice. Pre-recorded. Because no one should stay a prisoner forever, she sat on the bed silent. This time, her tears came quietly. Not from pain, but from something scarier. Hope. Serena sat by the window, watching the stars blink in the fake night sky above the dome. Her mind was full, too full. She had saved a human and no one punished her. No one even questioned it. They treated her like someone who belonged. But that couldn't be right. She was still a prisoner, wasn't she? Her fingers reached up to her neck. No collar. It was gone. The buzzing metal band that once reminded her she was owned, controlled, locked like a beast, gone without a word. And no one came to return it. She stood up and paced the room. This wasn't how humans behaved. At least not the humans who destroyed her world. They enslaved, they punished, they broke people like her. So what was this place? A trick, a trap, or something else? Later that morning, the door opened. Commander Elias stood there holding nothing. No food, no weapons. No guards, just a calm look on his face. Serena stepped back slightly, unsure. Can I come in? He asked. Her eyes narrowed. Why ask permission now? Because I don't want to be your jailer anymore, Elias said. You can say no. She looked at him for a moment, then nodded once. He entered and sat at the edge of the bed. She stayed standing. I ordered the collar removed, he said, voice quiet. It was wrong. You're not property. Serena folded her arms. So what am I now? A guest, a soldier? Elias looked at her. That's for you to decide. Those words hit her harder than any slap. No one had ever given her a choice before. They sat in silence. Zarena finally broke it. Why are you doing this? I told you. I've been a prisoner too. I know what it does to your soul. Humans were the ones who— Yes, he interrupted softly. Humans hurt you. Some of us are monsters. I won't defend them. But not all of us are like that. Serena's jaw tightened. Where I'm from, we learned too late who to trust. Elias nodded. Same here. He stood up and walked to the wall. Tapped it twice. A hidden panel opened, revealing a small locker. He pulled out something wrapped in cloth and handed it to her. She unwrapped it slowly. It was her pendant, a tiny stone, dull green, shaped like a leaf, hanging on a leather cord. The only thing she had left from her home, her mother's gift. Her hands trembled. Where did you find this? She asked, voice shaking. Elias looked down. The soldiers took it when they captured you. I made sure it wasn't destroyed. She didn't say thank you, but her eyes said it for her. She put the pendant around her neck, holding it close like a heartbeat. Later, Elias walked her to the observation deck. No collar. No guards, just her and him. Other humans passed by, watching her. Some curious, some afraid, some angry, but no one stopped them. When they reached the glass wall, Zarena froze. Beyond it was open space, black and endless. Stars scattered like diamonds, and there, far below, a broken planet floated in silence. Her planet, shattered, burnt, barely holding together. She stepped closer to the glass, hands trembling. Elias said nothing. He just stood beside her, quiet and still. I was born there, she whispered, on the green side where the river sparkled. We had music in the wind. Children laughed under the trees. She closed her eyes. Now it's just ashes. Elias finally spoke. I'm sorry. She didn't reply, but she didn't walk away. That night, she sat alone in her room, clutching the pendant. She wasn't sure what she was anymore, not a prisoner, not quite free, just floating between two worlds, and somewhere inside her chest, the broken pieces of her heart started to shift. She didn't know if they were healing or just making space for something new. The next morning, Elias returned. This time he brought a datapad. I have an offer, he said. Serena raised an eyebrow. We need help, he explained. Not just fighting. Understanding other species. We have no idea how many we've hurt. You could be a voice for them. A bridge. Serena stared at him. You want me to work with you? I want you to decide for yourself, Elias said. You can leave this place, or stay and help. No collar, no chains, just choice. She didn't answer right away. Then she stepped forward and held out her arm. Give me the datapad, she said. He handed it over. Serena studied the screen quietly. After a long pause, She looked up and said, "I'll stay. But not for you." Elias nodded. "For them?" Serena looked toward the stars. "For the ones who can't speak for themselves." As Elias turned to leave, Serena called out, "You know, when they first put that collar on me, I swore I'd kill the one who took it off." He paused, she smirked. "But I think I'll let you live. For now." Elias laughed softly and walked out, and for the first time since her capture, Serena smiled. It started with thunder, not from the sky but from the earth. The station shook. Alarms blared. Serena jumped to her feet, her heart racing. A sudden explosion echoed from the lower levels. "Structural breach. South generator offline." The voice echoed from the intercom. Lights flickered, then turned red. Serena rushed to the hallway as doors sealed shut behind her. People ran, shouting. Smoke crawled from the vents. And deep under her feet, the floor vibrated like something alive. She grabbed the arm of a passing soldier. "What's happening?" "Power overload." Lightning storm hit the backup grid. "Everything's failing." Serena's eyes widened. A storm in space? No, not in space. They were orbiting a moon with a thin atmosphere. Unstable weather. She remembered Elias explaining it once during lunch. Now the station's outer panels were catching plasma lightning and it was burning everything. And Elias, where was he? She ran toward the command deck, ignoring the voices yelling at her to stop. "Restricted area," someone shouted. But no one dared stand in her way. Not now. When she reached the upper hallway, smoke was pouring in from the side vents. The air was hot. Too hot. Then she saw him. Elias was kneeling beside a control panel, his arm bleeding. Sparks danced near his fingers as he tried to reroute power. She sprinted to him. "You'll get yourself killed," she shouted. Elias looked up, sweat dripping down his face. "We need to restart the coolant system manually or the whole south wing burns." Serena didn't wait. She pushed him aside and grabbed the hot cable with her bare hands. Her alien skin could take more heat than a human's, but even so, pain shot up her arms. She gritted her teeth and twisted the wires together. Loud pop, then silence. The emergency lights turned. Blue cooling fans roared back to life. The fire died down, and Serena collapsed beside him, breathing hard. Elias coughed. "Remind me not to get in your way." She smiled, barely able to speak. "You're welcome." But it wasn't over. Suddenly, a support beam above them cracked. The ceiling moaned. "Move," Elias yelled. They rolled to the side just as the beam fell and smashed the floor, opening a hole to the level below. A gust of wind rushed in, cold, fast, and full of rain. The storm had broken part of the wall. Actual rain from the outside moon poured through the damaged section of the hull. It mixed with smoke and fire. A strange combination. Fire and rain. Elias stood, coughing. "We need to seal that breach." Serena followed him. "No time. If the water reaches the core, boom," he finished grimly. They ran toward the breach. Outside, the sky flashed with orange lightning. Rain fell sideways. Wind howled. Serena's hair stuck to her face. Her shirt clung to her skin. She pressed forward, slipping on the wet floor. Elias hit the override panel. Nothing. The controls were dead. Serena turned, looked him in the eye, and without warning, slammed her fists into the emergency panel. Sparks flew. The heavy door began to close, slowly, but something caught her leg. A falling pipe. It pinned her. Ankle to the floor, she cried out in pain. "Elias!" Ran to help. The door was almost shut. "You'll be trapped," he shouted. "Go!" She yelled back, her face twisted in pain. "Seal it!" He ignored her. With a grunt, he lifted the pipe off her leg and pulled her free. Just in time to dive through the closing door. It slammed shut behind them. Rain and wind gone. Silence. They lay on the floor. Soaked and shaking, Serena looked at him. "You could have left me." Elias stared at the ceiling. "So could you." Back in the fire. They didn't speak for a while, only their breathing filled the room. Then she laughed. Just a little. It surprised both of them. "You humans are strange," she said. Elias turned his head. "You're not so simple either." Her smile faded slowly. "I used to think I'd rather die than trust a human." "And now?" he asked. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she sat up and held her leg. It was bruised but not broken. Then she said softly, "Now, I don't know what to think." Later in the med bay, a technician cleaned her leg while Elias sat nearby, arm in a sling. He looked at her and said, "You saved the station today." Zarena didn't respond. He continued, "You're more than a survivor, Zarena. You're someone who fights for others even when they don't deserve it." She looked at him then, really looked, and finally whispered, "You gave me a choice. But you also gave me something else." Elias waited. "You gave me a reason to stay." That night, she returned to her room. No guards, no collar, just a clean towel, a warm blanket, and a single message blinking on the translator device. "Thank you, Zarena." Elias, she smiled. For the first time, she didn't feel like a prisoner or even just a survivor. She felt seen, and the rain in her memories, cold, cruel, painful, now felt warm, because she wasn't alone in the storm anymore. Zarena stood on the edge of the station's garden deck, her bare feet pressing into the soft moss-like floor. Artificial trees swayed gently, stirred by hidden air vents that mimicked a breeze. A soft hum of life surrounded her, calm, peaceful, alive. But inside her heart, a war still raged. She remembered the words she had once screamed in anger and pain. "I'll never be your animal." Those words had been her shield, her sword, her vow, but now, she didn't know if they still held meaning. Not after the fire, not after the rain, not after Elias refused to leave her behind. Elias stepped into the garden quietly, holding 2 steaming cups of something warm. Zarena didn't look back. "You're late," she said softly. "I was learning how to make your favorite tea," Elias replied. She turned, surprised. "How do you know what my favorite is?" "I asked the translator," he said with a smile. "It guessed based on your scent reaction during meals." Zarena blinked. "Your machine sniff me now?" Elias laughed. "Only a little." She shook her head but accepted the cup. They sat together under the fake stars, sipping in silence. It should have been awkward, but it wasn't. Zarena finally spoke. "When I was a child, I used to hide during the hunts. My people, we weren't warriors. We were artists, builders, singers. But after the invasions, we had to become something else, something harder." Elias listened quietly. "I once watched my brother die," she continued, her voice flat. "He tried to protect me. They chained us together. When he couldn't walk fast enough, they dragged us. He screamed for me to let go. I didn't." Her hand trembled slightly around the cup. "He died with my name in his mouth." Elias didn't speak, because no words could fix that pain. "But now," she whispered, "you act like I'm something more than a ghost." Elias looked at her, eyes full of quiet sadness. "You're not a ghost, Zarena. You're alive, and that means you still have the power to choose who you want to be." She stared at the floor. "What if I don't know?" "Then we find out together." She raised her eyes slowly, and for the first time since her capture, she felt seen. Not as a prisoner, not even as an alien, just her back in her room that night. Zarena opened the small storage locker quietly. Inside was the old collar. Someone had placed it there without her noticing. She picked it up slowly, staring at it. The metal was cold, heavy, full of old pain. She carried it to the window and held it up to the stars, then dropped it. The collar hit the floor with a dull thud and stayed there. She walked away. Next morning, Elias stood by the shuttle bay preparing for a diplomatic meeting. Zarena walked in, dressed in a simple gray uniform. Not prisoner clothes, not her old battle-worn rags. Something new, something chosen. "You look different," Elias said. "I feel different," she replied. He offered her a tablet. "I'd like you to come with me." She raised an eyebrow. "You sure they'll accept me?" "I'm not taking you to them," Elias said. "I'm taking you for them, to show them who you are, not what they expect you to be." She looked down at the device, then at him. "You really trust me?" He nodded. "You saved lives. You saved me." She took the tablet, held it close to her chest, and whispered, "Then I vow something new." Elias tilted his head. "What kind of vow?" Zarena looked him dead in the eye. "I vow to never let pain decide who I become again. Not rage, not fear, not revenge." Elias stepped closer. "And if someone tries to hurt you again?" he asked gently. Zarena smirked. "Then they'll meet the other side of me." They both laughed, but there was power in her voice, not just strength, but healing. That night, A new entry appeared in the station's log. Subject, Zarena. Status, not detained. Role, cultural liaison. Clearance, level 2. Trust score, pending review. Recommendation, continue observation. Strong potential. Elias added a private note. She's rewriting her vow, not with fire or anger but with choice. And sometimes that's the bravest thing of all. Zarena stood at the edge of her room before sleep, looking out the window once again. The stars didn't look like graves anymore, they looked like doors, and this time, she had the key. Zarena stood at the docking bay, the cold metal floor humming under her boots. Behind her, the station was alive with quiet voices, repairs, and rebuilding. Ahead, the stars stretched forever, vast, bright, and unknown, and beside her stood Elias, not as her captor, not as her commander, but as her equal. She held her pendant close. It was warm from her skin. The leather cord wrapped around her fingers like a memory refusing to fade. Once this was all she had. Now she had more. A name, a choice, a future. The diplomatic shuttle waited nearby. It was sleek, white, and marked with both human and alien symbols. Inside, leaders from other colonies waited, many of them skeptical, some angry, most afraid. They didn't trust aliens like her, and she didn't blame them. Zarena looked at Elias. They won't listen to me. They will, he said softly. Because they'll see that you listened first. She raised an eyebrow. That was clever. I've had good teachers, he said, giving her a half smile. She looked down, pretending not to be touched, but she was. As the shuttle prepared to launch, a young mechanic rushed up holding something wrapped in cloth. Commander, the boy said, breathless. We found this during cleanup. Figured it might belong to her. Zarena took it gently and unwrapped it, her old collar, scuffed, damaged, but still intact. She stared at it for a long time. Elias stepped forward. You don't have to keep that, I know, she said, and then she did something strange. She placed the collar gently in her satchel. Elias blinked. Why would you keep it? Zarena looked out the window. Because it reminds me, she whispered, of who I was, and who I never want to be again. Hours later, the shuttle docked at the Unity station, a massive gathering place for all species in this part of the galaxy. Zarena followed Elias through the halls. Her eyes caught stares, whispers, tight grips on weapons, but she walked tall. No chains, no collar, only her name. In the main chamber, the council sat around a high table, half-circle, raised and ancient-looking. 100 eyes watched her, some alien, some human, some with no eyes at all. She stepped forward. No speech prepared, no orders, just truth. My name is Zarena, she began, voice clear. I was taken in chains. I swore I would never trust a human. I swore I would never kneel. I swore I would never belong. She looked at Elias standing beside her. And yet, I was wrong. Gasps rippled through the room. I saw what humans can do, she continued. Yes, they destroy, but they also rebuild. Yes, they fight, but they also protect. I was not saved by their rules or their power. I was saved by something else. She paused. Kindness. No one moved. Zarena raised her pendant. This belonged to my mother. When she died, I thought all I had left was rage. But someone returned this to me, not because I begged, but because they cared. She stepped back, eyes shining. I am not here to ask for peace. I'm here to build it. And if anyone wants to chain me again, she pulled the old collar from her bag and dropped it on the table. I'll choose the chain myself. Silence. Then, a slow clap from the head of the table. A Crelian elder stood, ancient, four-armed, eyes like deep wells. The girl speaks fire, the elder rumbled. And yet her fire warms, not burns. Others slowly began to nod. Even the human delegate leaned in, whispering something to his aide. After the meeting, Elias caught up with her outside. You were incredible, Zarena smirked. I'm always incredible. You're just now noticing. They both laughed, then stood quietly watching the stars. So, he said, what now? She looked at him. I don't know, maybe. I stay. Here? No, she said, stepping closer. With you. His expression softened. Is that another vow? She reached out and took his hand. No, she whispered. It's a choice. Back on the original station, the logs were updated again. Zarena, role, cultural advisor. Clearance full, status chosen ally. Note, this one is no longer a prisoner. She is a bridge. A protector. A voice later that night, alone in her quarters. Zarena placed the old collar on a small table. Not as a reminder of chains, but as a trophy of what she broke through. A symbol not of ownership, but of survival and choice. She touched her pendant once more, then whispered to the stars, "I'll never be your animal." A pause. "But I'll fight beside you if you let me." And the stars for once didn't feel so far away.